The full view starts now. Former President or Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe made a public appearance on Sunday, the first since he was ousted in November. Addressing the media outside his home in a posh suburb of Harare, Mugabe said he will not vote for his successor, Emmerson Mnangagwa.
I must say very clearly, I cannot vote for those who have tormented me. No, I can't. I'll make my choice among the other 22.
The 94-year-old also encouraged Zimbabweans to accept the outcome of tomorrow's vote.
The greatest damage we have done to our history, the greatest injustice we have done to ourselves. We had become a democratic country after our independence. We went to the assistance of others who were in trouble. Mozambique, we assisted Namibia, we were in the DRC, etc. Is this now the Zimbabwe which has become so undemocratic, so illegal in its actions and unconstitutional? I am talking on the eve of the day I longed for, that let the people go and vote. Let them go and vote freely, and I'm glad even ED has said people will be allowed to go to vote freely. And the result will be recognized.
We are now joined live from our Pretoria studios by Dr. William Mpofu, who is a researcher at Wits at the Center for Diversity Studies. Good evening, sir. Now, we do know that everyone has been saying it's a new dawn of democracy in Zimbabwe. Now, Mnangagwa has vowed that these polls will break from the past. He basically says they will be free and fair. What's your take on that?
Free and fairness of elections depends on many factors, including the political and historical climate that characterizes that context of elections. And given one of the important factors of reading politics, the reputations, the history of the individuals in charge and at play, and recent events like bomb explosions and all that, and the past violence that has accompanied the elections, we cannot speculate or expect free and fair elections on the account of that corrupted and rather toxic political climate.
So now both Chamisa and Mnangagwa are saying they are in a very good position to deliver economic recovery from Zimbabwe. What can you say about that?
Politicians and politics always make promises, but speaking again reputationally, comparing Chamisa and Mnangagwa, Mnangagwa has been in Zimbabwean politics for the past 50 years. And he has been in power in that he was instrumental, fundamental, and quite critical in the Robert Mugabe regime. And he features in many political catastrophes that have accompanied the history and the politics of Zimbabwe. So for him to promise together with Chamisa that he's going to deliver a revolution, a change, something new, I think Mnangagwa is beyond repair. It's goods that have gone past their expiry date. I can look at Chamisa and ask, what is he going to invent? What is he going to do? He has an opportunity to do that. But Mnangagwa belongs to the Mugabe era, and if anything, he was in Mugabe's hand in the genocide, in economic collapse, in all the activities, disappearances, assassinations, accidents and incidents that have punctuated Zimbabwean history and Zimbabwean politics. So I cannot expect a political invention from Emmerson Mnangagwa.
Okay, so I do get a sense that you are also saying, listen, we need generational change here. Now, one question that I'd like to pose to you is, can the opposition mount a credible campaign?
That there's no doubt that the opposition can mount a credible campaign. And I'm going back to the issue of the political climate, the permitting and prohibiting circumstances and historical conditions that are on the ground. They are in disfavor of the opposition from the start. Events of the past and events of the present. But we can have faith in the people of Zimbabwe. We can have faith in the history of Zimbabwe that tyranny, that genocidal politics, that corrupt politics and that violence cannot prevail against the will of the people. What I'm saying in actuality is that the people of Zimbabwe can deliver themselves from the problem that Zimbabwe is trapped in right now, a problem that includes ZANU-PF, Emmerson Mnangagwa, the history of Robert Mugabe, and all these other toxic individuals and histories that have punctuated that particular country.
Now, you keep referring back to violence. What happens if there are disputes or election violence this time around?
In politics, what we need to do is to understand violence not only in presentism, like violence now. As we speak and as we prepare for the vote tomorrow, the violence that happened in 1980 is a factor in the election. That happened in 1990, that happened in 2008, that happened in Murambatsvina, and other violent episodes of Zimbabwean history are at play because voters in general and voters specifically are affected by past incidents of violence. Fear accompanies their consciousness and their decision making. So the violence we are speaking about is not an issue of the past but an issue of the present, even if it happened in 1980 and in 1975, if you can say. So violence is a factor in these elections and it will affect how the vote goes. The individuals that are being voted for, some of them, like Emmerson Mnangagwa himself, are feared people who are known to come back, to terrorize, to threaten, and to disappear and fundamentally punish people that dissent to them, and that is going to affect the vote. So the climate, like I said, is corrupted already, and the opposition is swimming against the tide of a history and a legacy of political violence and genocidal
Thank you, Dr.
kind of politics in that country.
Dr. Mpofu, what I'd like to do now is introduce our Sunday Times journalist, who is Ray Ndlovu. He's in Harare, and he joins us now by phone to participate in this conversation. Ray, you are in the thick of things. You've heard what our analyst, Dr. Mpofu, has to say. What is your take on what's going on in Zimbabwe?
Well, thank you for having me, but I'll probably just want to indicate the fact that we've had quite a peaceful run-up to the election itself. In fact, voting day tomorrow. Of course, the violence has been an issue in this country in previous elections, but one of the things about this particular contest, where Robert Mugabe is not going to be participating in, is the fact that there has not been, violence as overtly as we've always been accustomed to. So that's one key distinguishing factor, I think, about this election. But, the lack of violence itself does not mean perhaps there's no intimidation, say, in rural areas or in areas where, the ruling party is known to be intent on keeping its grip on power. But one thing about the election is the fact that there's been no, violence at the scale that we've seen previously, and the fact that this could be assisted by the presence of various observer missions in the country, the Commonwealth, the SADC observer mission, the AU, as well as the European Union, which are some of the missions that are here in the country at the moment.
So, coming back to you just mentioned the AU. The AU, some of the observers have been saying that this election they've definitely seen a difference. There are more people who are able to partake in the voting. There are more people who are able to participate as politicians and vie for the candidacy. What do you think the AU observers have been noticing on the ground?
Well, I'm not really too sure in terms of what they've noticed and to be able to speak for them, but what I could definitely say is the fact, the things that I've indicated already, that the strong feature of violence which leads up to such events has been absent. The fact that we have 23 presidential candidates taking part in this election, some that's quite notable because we've never had, nearly 2,000 people contesting for the presidency. And the fact that the MDC alliance, which is led by Nelson Chamisa, has been able to have rallies in rural areas and places where previously it was near impossible or a local zone for the opposition is something as well. I think that speaks into a climate that seems to, border around being peaceful, as it were. So I think it's something really that has to be acknowledged as far as what makes up this particular election, not to obviously overlook the concerns that have come from the opposition, because they have raised serious concerns and the concerns border around the administration of the poll itself. But I think Nelson Chamisa comfortably, as election campaigning closed yesterday, is sitting at about 82 or so rallies that he was able to stage right across the country over the last couple of weeks, campaigning, and that's something that's really quite high and quite commendable in terms of some of the areas where he's been able to hold these rallies.
Now, before we ask you what is the sense on the ground, there's survey data, particularly in specific Afrobarometer. They say 40% of Zimbabweans will vote for Mnangagwa, while 37% will vote for Chamisa, and the rest will either be undecided or unwilling to disclose their choice. Now, this suggests that the contest is much closer than many have imagined. If no candidate secures more than 50% of the vote, will the vote go to a second round?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what the law says in this country in terms of the election going into a spin-off or a runoff contest where either candidate, should they fail to get the percent plus one vote, the election itself must go into runoff. So definitely that's something that would take place, I think, around the date is the 8th of September. That's the date scheduled should it spill into runoff.
Okay, Dr. Rain Ndlovu and Dr. William Mpofu, please do stay with us. We will soon cross to our reporter who's on the ground in Harare, Peter Ndoro, but let's first take a short break.